Hello, and welcome to this week's sales mini class. My name is Dana Zifisak, and I'm a travel agent educator. And we're going to talk about today the power of the unanswered quote. Because an unanswered quote does not mean it's the end of that quote. Okay. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And while we are waiting for people to come, I am going to put up the question of the day. I want to know when school starts back up in your area. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make sure. So tell me in the comments when does school start back up? Because Friday's August, guys. It's August on Friday. That's crazy. It's crazy. So tell me in the comments, um when do your kids or area kids, if you don't have kids in school right now, when do they start back up? Okay. So go ahead, tell me in the comments. I'd love to know. Oh, September 15th. Oh my goodness, they still have a month and a half, Judy. They still have a month and a half out there. Lucky them. My son starts back August 20, I believe it's the 25th. Let me look. Yep, the 25th. They used to always go the week after Labor Day. The Labor Day, and then the next day they would start. But now they start the week before Labor Day, and they are not happy. So tell me in the comments, when does your area go back to school? Because a lot of times, here's the thing about, school, a lot of times that influences our industry. When kids are back in school, we have a different set of people a lot of times traveling. Now, a lot of people are more willing nowadays to take their kids out of school, but I guess it really just depends on, the local school districts, rules and all that. But you want to make sure that you are aware of what's going on in your area. So we have an August 7th, a mid-August, August 25th, like my son. Yep. Okay. Yep. So it's coming back. It's coming back. I want to, so we're getting there. It's been a fun summer. I hope you guys have had a good summer. Okay. But I think the fall just brings with it a nice sense of structure again and all of that. So, I just want to go ahead. I'm going to tag people in the group, and then we're going to get started. All right. So August 25th, September 15th. Okay, guys. So let's talk about, the power of the unanswered quote. Now, some people send a quote and then they don't hear back. And that happens a lot. And that's okay. Because guess what? People get a quote, and a lot of times they don't have a chance to look it over. I always like to say we are in this world. Okay. We know that prices are going to change. We know that if we don't lock in a price, it's likely to go up in the next week or in the next month. So we want people to get the best rate possible. But the thing is, sometimes they're not responding. And you're like, oh my goodness, this quote was a waste of my time. Okay. But an unanswered quote doesn't have to mean that. An unanswered quote just means a couple different things. One, they're not ready to commit. Okay. And that's all right. So I had someone who I sent a quote the other day, and she was excited to see it, but then I didn't hear back from her. So I followed up today, and I just sent her a message. Now, something I do in following up that I know, I like to meet the clients where they are. Okay. So if they first reached out to me on Messenger, I'll usually follow up on Messenger, even though I know it's hard to keep up with everything in all these different places. But I like to try to keep with them where they are versus always doing it over email. Now, again, I prefer email. Email is my preferred method of communication. However, I also want to make sure that if they want to do a phone call, we do a phone call. If they want to do a Teams meeting, we do a Teams meeting. You got to be available to them when they're ready. So anyway, so I sent a follow-up, and she messaged me back right away and said, "You know what? I'm traveling this week to visit family. We're going to look at it next week." Awesome. Okay. So, because I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not hearing back from her. But you have to remember, things are going on in people's lives. And she just happened to see. So, and this was something where I posted last week from Epic Universe, and someone commented on the post and sent me a message. So the moral of the story is, yeah, she wanted to reach out to me, and then I got the quote to her, and then we just have to go back and forth. Now, for some people, they see the cost and they're like, oh, we didn't know it was that much. And sometimes they don't want to email you back and say, oh, this was out of our budget. People don't like to say that. Okay. So a lot of times they just won't say anything at all. Okay. And that's aggravating too. But if you keep them in your world and say, okay, you might not be ready to commit yet, but keep them there. Keep them there so that when they are ready, you're there for them. Okay. Okay. They forgot. This happens. People actually forget about things that are important to them. All right. Or, again, we live in this world. Getting a trip deposited for us is very important. We don't want to lose that rate. Okay. And they don't want to lose it either. However, in their brain, it doesn't add up, because if it's something like a year from now or something like that, they're more worried about getting the doctor appointment that they need to tomorrow, or, like getting their dog fed lunch. Okay. That's what they're thinking about. Okay. We're thinking, oh, we want to get this confirmed so that they have this locked in. Our priorities are different. So we have to remind them. So many people tell me that they only follow up once or twice. And a lot of times people need like 5 follow-ups or even more to be reminded. They want to go on the trip. They just keep forgetting. And I always like to say it's our responsibility to keep reminding them until either they book or they say, oh, we're not going to go. Okay. And the last reason why people don't respond to a quote is because they are confused and overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. Okay. And a big way I have updated this in my business, and I've been doing this a couple years now. I learned this from somebody else, or I saw somebody else doing this, and I thought, oh, that's a really good idea. I walk them through their quote so I go into Zoom, but I don't turn the camera on. I just share my screen and I hit record to the cloud. Okay. They're not in the Zoom room with me. I just do it as I'm doing after I do the quote and before I send it off. And I talk them through the different options. I talk them through this hotel versus this hotel and the amenities here and the amenities there. And I try to get through some of that so that they understand what they're looking at. Because again, to us, this is all very basic. Okay. We look at this and we're like, yep. But to somebody else who's not in the travel world, they are not thinking, like, their point of reference is different. So we have to remember to come from, to explain it like you were explaining to somebody who's never been there before, or who has never, because they might not have ever been there before, wherever you're quoting them. So you have to remember to break things down, because this is an overwhelming and confusing universe. All right. And our attention spans are not what they used to be. So if they start seeing all these words and all this stuff, and it looks like another language to them, even though it's not, it's English. They'll forget about it. Okay. Think of something that, you look at it and you're like, oh, I can't comprehend this right now. And you save it for later. And then what happens? Later never comes, right? That's how our potential clients are. So that's why it's our responsibility. So an unanswered quote doesn't always mean they don't want to go. It could mean that they just are really confused by this and they need some help understanding it. So that's why one of the ways I do that now is by recording the quote and talking them through it as if I was on the phone. Now, of course, if we did a phone meeting, but sometimes I still do that. Like, for example, today I had a phone meeting. I had a Teams meeting with a client and his wife, and I still sent them the quote yesterday with my walkthrough. So that way they were prepared for our meeting and had, they were able to not be so overwhelmed. And that really helped get through the call today. But you have to think of it as we are teaching them about this destination. We are teaching them how to do it, and we want them to be successful. It's like we're preparing them for a test. Okay. And I know this seems like a lot. All right. But I think you need to remember that this is all part of a process. Everything in our business is part of a process. We have a process for marketing. We have a process for sales. And when your marketing works and you finally get that quote request, or you get somebody who has been seeing you post and they're like, I want to work with her for my next trip. All right. You've done the hard part. You've gotten someone into your world, and then closing the sale, taking it from quote to closed, is where you have to show up for them and say, I'm going to explain this to you, or I'm going to make this easier for you to understand. Now, if the issue is budget, that's okay too, because you say, you know what? You stay on my email list. I will email out when there's promotions, or, if they know they want to do this trip, it might just be a couple more years and you'll be here for them still. It's not that instant gratification that we've all become so accustomed to in our lives, but this business is a long game, guys. It is a long game, and everything we do by nurturing the relationship, even on an unanswered quote, can turn into future business. Does it always? No. But is it something that will strengthen your business in the long run? Yes. So make sure that you have an unanswered quote, that you're making sure that they didn't forget. You don't want to forget about them. Okay. Make sure that they understand everything that's going on. And make sure that, you give them the time and space they need to make a decision, because sometimes they just need the time. Like maybe their spouse is is traveling and they can't, they want to talk to them first. That's okay. I mean, we usually do talk to our spouses before we make a major decision. Do I book a trip sometimes and say, oh, this is what we're doing? Yes. But he knows that, that's my thing. Okay. All right. You have a wonderful day. Now, tomorrow, I'm supposed to do another sales class tomorrow. But I might have to move that, because I think I am going to have to move that because I have to take my son to an appointment, and it just got moved from next week to tomorrow. So I don't think I'm going to be able to teach tomorrow. So I'll move that around. So, I should just schedule these one at a time. I thought, I can do Wednesday, Thursday this week. Life has other plans. Okay. So I will talk to you again next week. And please share this with your agents or with agents' friends. And feel free to tag anybody who you think would benefit from this little pep talk. Have a good day. Bye-bye.